Hey, this is Christian, and you're listening to the 5 Moves of Doom podcast, brother.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Small, and on behalf of the 5 Moves of Doom podcast, these are my Wrestlemania predictions. Now, the good brothers Ben and Jack will have their WrestleMania predictions up shortly, but in the interim, they asked if I wanted to throw my picks in the mix, and I said, well, why not? So, to make the conversation a bit less one-sided and schizophrenic, I've also recruited my friend, wrestling aficionado, and quite possibly the only Impact fan I know, and I'm from Toronto, Mr. Dan Saracino. Dan, how you doing today?
Pretty good, yeah. Looking forward to the big weekend that is WrestleMania weekend.
It's come up pretty quickly, hasn't it?
It really has. It's been a year since Ronda has made her in-ring debut, and a year since it felt like Roman Reigns took about how many F5s from Brock Lesnar? Let's go 20. 20.
The over-under was about 10. I lost count when it got to the double digits, definitely. So, but obviously it's going to be a much different main event this year, speaking of Ronda.
Hopefully she's out of the police car when it comes time for WrestleMania.
I don't know if you saw her quote-unquote mugshot on Instagram that looked totally legit, but I have a feeling that there are going to be some people in high places that could probably put in a good word for Sunday.
Yeah, I think Vince can spring for bail.
I think so.
He can afford to reinvest the XFL. He can definitely get Ronda out of prison.
We've got 16 matches. That is a slog. I mean, I'm really excited for the show, but, I mean, you and I, being in Melbourne, we're only going to start watching it about 6 p.m. So
6 p.m. and 16 matches. I think that's more than most wrestling rosters out there, especially Impact.
Very true.
All right, let's get into it, Dan. But before we do, just a reminder to please subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Also, be sure to follow us on Twitter at 5MOD_podcast. That's 5MOD_podcast. And while you're at it, why don't you open another browser and visit smartmark.co.uk. That is smartmark with a hyphen in the middle, .co.uk, and check out some of the sweet, sweet teas that the guys have up on their mini store. You can be fashionable and nerdy, which is pretty much my wheelhouse.
All right, so let's go from what we perceive to be the bottom of the ladder all the way to the top.
Complete pits.
The complete pits. We've got the Revival versus Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder. This was just announced a few days ago. Can this really go any other way than having Hawkins get the pin and breaking his losing streak at this stage? I mean, Ryder's going to continue this weird legacy of WrestleMania pops that proceed to go nowhere with. I feel. That's how I'm feeling. What about you?
Look, I keep forgetting about this match because it was mentioned so late, really. I think everyone loves the Revival. They are so good, and you know they don't want to be there. And you just get the feeling that Vince and Triple H just want to make them look bad, damage the goods if they do want to go to AEW, like everybody's saying, especially after the hashtag of FTR being trademarked earlier this year. Look, I would like to see the Revival look strong. Will they? I don't know. I don't even know if Ryder and Hawkins will have contracts with WWE 6 months from now.
That's a good point.
I mean, I know they've been signing everybody, but what else is there to do with these guys? The edgeheads. I still see them as edgeheads.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many failed launches for Ryder in particularly. I mean, you'd think after WrestleMania 32 that they were going to do something with him in that IC win, and then obviously the next day that was just taken away.
You know, that got me back into wrestling, that IC win. I just thought, you know what, it looked good and he looked strong, and it was a great match to open up that card in Texas. Kevin Owens looked good, Sami Zayn looked good, and just a lot of those guys, if you look back, they had so much promise with that WrestleMania, and it attracted a lot of new fans, and they just haven't done anything with a few of those guys since, unfortunately.
Okay, so you're hoping that the Revival's going to look strong, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, which team are you going to go with?
I think I've definitely got to go the Revival.
All right, well, I'm going Hawkins and Ryder, so there we go. We got our first disagreement right off the bat. This bodes well. Next, we've got the second annual WrestleMania Women's Battle Royale. We've got Asuka in this, Carmella, Naomi, pretty much anyone who's not in the 2 women events on the main card there.
Filling in the gaps, really.
Really, at this stage.
All right, so we know that this one is going to be on the pre-show. They announced that a couple of weeks ago. It's got to be Asuka. I mean, just for everything that they have put her through for the past 3 months. Poor Asuka.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now, with Asuka, a lot of fans were really disappointed that she's not really having a WrestleMania moment this year because entering into the Women's Battle Royal, the second official Women's Battle Royal for WrestleMania, it's kind of a non-event, honestly. And sadly, I've been calling it the battle of who can care less because they've got a lot of women in this match that I can't see WWE wanting to push at all. A lot of people that have had their chances hasn't really worked out. I think definitely it's going to be the whole thanks for being a team player, Asuka. Away you go.
I know this is maybe hyperbole, but has there ever been any NXT call-up that has had more damage done to their mystique than Asuka?
I don't think it's even possible going forward. I mean, her reign where she was beating the Iconics in 2-1 matches. And you know what? Like, a lot of wrestling fans appreciate what Asuka does as a wrestler and as a performer, and it's a bit of a shame. She deserves a lot better.
Absolutely. Speaking of Battle Royales, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royale. So the participants include Braun Strowman, 2 guys from Saturday Night Live, and the rest, really.
And Jinder. I think Jinder's back in this one.
Cannot hinder Jinder, definitely. I mean, it's got to be Braun, or it's one of the SNL guys, which would just be a travesty.
Yeah, look, initially my notes were Braun was going to look like he was going to win it until Nicholas turns on him 1 year later.
Nicholas is over, brother.
But no, seriously, it's, look, Braun, they need to build him back up. It's a bit of a shame what's happened to him since the Crown Jewels in November last year, because I was actually looking forward to that match, him versus Brock Lesnar and him being a main event and a big deal. That hasn't gone down that way, and sorry, but they need to do something with Braun, because at the moment people aren't popping, people aren't excited with him flipping cars like they used to. They need to do something, and he needs to be in something that means something.
Absolutely, well said. All right, then we go on to the Usos versus Ricochet and Aleister Black versus The Bar versus Shinsuke Nakamura and Rusev in a fatal 4-way match for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Notes I've got here. Honestly, we go from
The fall from grace of Asuka from when she was in NXT to the main roster. It's just Ricochet and Aleister Black have had such a strong and tremendous call-up so far. They haven't been submitted. There hasn't been a pinfall victory against them. I think they've only really lost through shenanigans and chicanery. If it's not them, it's got to be the Usos. The other teams are just there for a WrestleMania payday.
Exactly. I really like the Usos. I think they really do bring it every time they do show up to these big matches. I still am favouring the Usos to retain.
Oh, okay,
but that's purely for the simple fact that Aleister Black and Ricochet, they just don't, like, they work well as a team, but they're not a team if you look into character. So I can definitely see maybe them coming a bit short, them clashing, and then I think their story is going to be better told with a singles run for both of them, because they're a makeshift tag team.
Yeah, they did just kind of get thrown together, didn't they?
Yeah, and I mean, Aleister Black, who just comes across as an antisocial loner, it's like, yeah, let's just put him with the flippy guy from Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they won the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, so, I mean, that gives them momentum. It did a bit to legitimize them as a tag team, but yeah, I do agree. If it's going to be the tag team chance, it really should go to a tag team.
And hey, the Usos beat that drunk driving rap, so anything's possible, right?
It sure is.
Buddy Murphy versus Tony Nese for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship.
All right, Buddy Murphy, hands down, most improved wrestler in the last year, last 2 years, last 3 years, for a guy who looked like he was going to get sacked by NXT, especially with the tag team with Gunner. Murphy, look, I think it's gonna not have enough time to properly tell a story, unfortunately. I'm picking Buddy because I don't really know if they even really care about Tony Nese. But look, it should be a good match. I don't think they'll have enough time to tell the story. Wouldn't be too surprised if it even gets bumped earlier in the card than what it actually is. But definitely, Buddy Murphy will definitely do what he can in the time he has.
From Melbourne too, right?
Well, he's a Carlton supporter and does take his name from two football players that I am not fans of.
Only 5% of people listening are going to know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. Murphy's done so much for the championship and that show, just 205 Live as a whole.
It's such a better product since they lost Enzo.
100%, absolutely.
And I mean, no disrespect to Nice, but he just doesn't really seem like the guy to take it off Murphy. I mean, I think back and equate it to, 2 years ago or whatever it was, when you had Aries versus Neville for the Cruiserweight title. And that felt like a huge deal at the time. Like this match feels like a big deal too. They've done a really good job building it up with the tournament. They've done a good job solidifying the feud the past couple of weeks. But that Aries-Neville match, it felt like the tide was shifting and it was Aries' time. This doesn't feel like it's Nice's time.
It looked like it was getting closer and closer and Neville's grip was loosening. But I think at the end of the day, with 205, which is meant to be an exciting new brand, do they really want a journeyman? And I think that's probably what stopped Austin Aries from being a champion. And I think it's going to stop Tony Nese, who's definitely been around wrestling circles for probably about the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Hasn't really done anything too amazing in those 10 years, but just a really solid worker. I think it's great that he's getting a WrestleMania match because he is a hard worker. But I just think, you know what, they need someone exciting if they are going to take the belt from Buddy Murphy, who really has been really solid as a champion since winning it in Melbourne last year.
He has. They have built that whole show around him. So I think, yeah, we're definitely unanimous on that. Murphy retains. All right, next we've got the women's tag team titles. The Boss and Hug Connection, that is Bayley and Sasha Banks, versus, or should I say Bayley and Sasha Banks, versus the Divas of Doom, Beth Phoenix and Natalya, versus the Iconics, Billie Kay and Peyton Royce, versus Nia Jax and Tamina Snuka in a fatal four-way match.
Does Nia and Tamina actually have a tag team name? Because I've been calling them the Samoan Smash Sisters for quite a while now, because they have been pairing up.
And that is as good of a name as any.
If you're listening, Vince, write it down.
T-shirt, money, right there. I think, yeah, I mean, that just goes to it. Yeah, they have been teaming up for a while. But the Divas of Doom, you've got Beth Phoenix and Natalya, who did used to team up a whole lot, but Beth is retired, right? And it's not.
And she still looks amazing, Beth.
100%.
Like, she looks great. She can hang. I still think that she's not getting her due as with this whole women's revolution, with all the work she put in. I mean, even when she was made inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, was it last year or the year before?
I think it was last year, but
yeah, it was pretty much just a shot of edge as she talked. I mean, I think she definitely deserves a lot more, so I reckon she will look good in it, but I can't see them coming away with the gold.
Absolutely not, no. I'm going to have to say it's the Iconics.
It goes back to what we were saying with the Usos match, for instance. I mean, Bayley and Sasha Banks, they've been fantastic as the initial holders of those titles. They were the perfect team to legitimize them. But, I mean, once those belts are unified in the main event, they're going to need legitimate and serious competition going forward. And I think that Bayley and Sasha bring more to the table as singles competitors. Really, when it comes down to it, there's only one actual tag team in this match, and that is the Iconics.
Well, they actually have a tag team move finisher, unlike a lot of the other girls. So I was actually thinking Boss and Hug, but I think definitely everyone wants to
swayed you.
Well, you know what? I have been hanging out for the Sasha Bayley turn, and they flirted with it. And I don't want to bring up those anger management sketches, but you know, and it felt like we were getting closer and closer. And what better way to break them up than WrestleMania?
It's true. Absolutely. Maybe this time they'll have Sasha be the heel, because I don't know.
She's so good as a heel.
Absolutely.
She's a natural heel.
Absolutely. All right, so I think we're looking at the Iconics. You're thinking that it might be Boss and Hug, though.
Look, you know what? I won't be surprised either way, but it would be nice to see if the Iconics can do something with those bouts. And I think they're also better suited to Raw. The Raw brand and the SmackDown brand anyway. I mean, they're great talkers on the mic because they're annoying as hell, and I don't know if it's real heat or but either way, I think I still am edging towards Boss and Hug to retain, but hey, you never know.
And you wouldn't be too too upset if the Iconics did take it.
Well, you know what? As long as I see the sick knee from Sydney, where they actually do have a finisher, which you never see, and that Widow's Peak move, I would like to... We'll see what happens, but I'm still going with Boston Hug.
All right, excellent.
So next we have Rey Mysterio versus Samoa Joe for the WWE United States Championship. Isn't Mysterio actually legit injured? They did that weird thing on SmackDown a few days ago where he was supposed to have that fight with Andrade, and then they called it off because apparently he's having some sort of knee or leg issue. But I mean, that's just kind of par for the course in the entire story of Rey Mysterio's career for the past 10 years.
Well, I mean, when you fly that high, you're definitely going to have bad knees when you hit your 40s.
I mean, I want to say Joe retains, but if there is anyone on either roster that has suffered from parody and up and down booking, it has been Samoa Joe.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. The last 2 months, he has actually looked like a monster, the monster that I remember from TNA and the monster that was in Ring of Honor beforehand, like undefeated for over a year. Mm-hmm. I'm going Samoa Joe. I think it's great they're making him look like a monster. Ray, I feel like a bit of a wasted opportunity not seeing him wrestle Andrade Cien Almas, but hey, that's the way it goes some days. And I just think Samoa Joe to retain and R-Truth to not be involved with this whatsoever.
Absolutely, but I think that if anything does happen with R-Truth, it's that he is going to meet his childhood hero, John Cena, and get his WrestleMania moment.
And make a wish.
Oh, is he dying?
Well, his career was, but it just seems to always just survive. He is the cockroach. He will still be in WWE wrestling 20 years from now.
In the most lovable, we say that in the most loving way possible.
He's an amazing performer, and what he's done with limited opportunity in SmackDown since the end of last year, going into this year, especially R-Truth and Carmella around Christmas time. Great work.
This is amazing. R-Truth just randomly shows up in segments, and now he's randomly showed up in our segment right now.
He even was in one of those WWE movies last year as a gangster.
Oh, God, that's right.
Yeah, it just shows up. But look, great work from R-Truth and
Joe to retain.
And Joe to retain.
Next up, we have Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin in Angle's retirement match. What a dumpster fire this is. Thoughts?
Well, when you complain about WWE booking, this is going to be the example of a lot of wrestling fans. Now, for such an amazing career that Kurt Angle has had, I really am still hoping that we're being trolled and he is going to finish his career wrestling John Cena. But hey, at least this way, if he does have Baron Corbin, there is no way he has to let Baron go over on him.
That is true. I definitely think Angle, it's got to be Angle for the feel-good moment. But a better feel-good moment would be if he was wrestling anyone other than Corbin.
Anyone else?
That still might
What are you doing, Mojo Rawley?
He's speaking to a mirror backstage. But maybe he'll get the call. Put him in.
So I think we're both unanimous in that. I think that we all know, pretty much any wrestling fan knows, that Angle is going to win this and get to ride off in the sunset and get the hero's farewell that he deserves.
Completely agree. And WWE, you said you were changing for the fans late last year and said you were going to give fans what they wanted, and you took away Baron Corbin and we were so much happier. Just remember that. Go back to that.
Now,
Baron.
My other question is his WrestleMania gear going to be a full suit this time? Or is he going back to the trunks? He got fired and he's still just wrestling in business casual.
He obviously didn't get the memo.
No.
Obviously just thinks, hey, if I keep wearing the suit, I'll get a suit job. I don't know, but it doesn't help his wrestling, does it?
It's like that Seinfeld episode where George Costanza quits and then he just shows up to work on Monday like nothing happened.
I'm pretty sure Baron's probably fired and they realize he's not paying him, so hey, why not?
All right, next, Triple H versus Batista in a no-holds-barred match where, if Triple H loses, he must retire as a wrestler.
You know what, Triple H, we talk about how many people he buries, but he has such a bad WrestleMania record, so I always feel like always doubting Triple H. But I also do get the feeling that if Shawn Michaels retires, then Triple H wants to retire. So I think it might actually be Batista going over. Because Triple H, really, how much longer can they, get him out there.
I was thinking about that too. The stipulation just makes me feel like I'm going to disagree, and I'm going to say I think it is going to be Triple H because, the whole build-up is that he's never beaten Batista. Yeah. That's really what this whole thing is just pinning on. Like, that is the focal point of the feud. And Triple H has calmed down a lot since his in-ring days, and there are a lot of podcasts and different things that you'll hear, interviews he gives where he talks about that competitive and egotistical kind of burying persona that he had was really fueled by the competition that happened in that era. But I think it really bugs him that he hasn't had that win over Batista, at least the one. And I mean, Batista's going to go away after this, right? He's said and made it very clear that he wants to wrestle Triple H one last time at WrestleMania, then go on and be a serious actor and meet Jodie Foster, which was my favorite takeaway from that interview. The Rock's not a real actor. John Cena's not a real actor. I am, and I'm going to do something with Jodie Foster because she's the best.
I cannot wait for them being in a movie together.
And I mean,
Panic Room 2.
And I mean, are they in the panic room together, or is he the one who's trying to break it? This is my diabetic son.
He needs his meds.
Listen, I think what you just said about Triple H, that he doesn't have a lot of years left, that he probably does want to retire. I agree with that in some ways, but at the same time, they're going to still roll him out for WrestleManias. They're going to roll him out for the Saudi Arabia shows. That prince paid a lot of money to see Triple H.
Yeah, but look, WWE is really good at getting out of, he's not really retired and coming back from retirement. And I just think with what's on Batista's calendar with films like, was it really all that tempting to sign on for one more match where you go back and lose?
Yeah, no, fair point. Yeah, so you've got Batista winning, I've got Triple H winning, but I think that there's one thing that we can unanimously agree on. How good has Batista been since he's been back?
He's giving them that star factor that they've been missing for such a long amount of time. Mm-hmm. Trying to call the Miz the Hollywood A-lister. Sorry, Miz, but the Marine 6, nobody watched it. Nobody watches it in Hollywood. Whereas Batista, he's also good for the fans that may have stopped watching WWE and, roping them back in. Mm-hmm. He just gives it that star factor, and there's just something about him. He just knows how to do a good promo, and, hey, he just beat up a 70-year-old Ric Flair, and he still has people cheering for him.
Absolutely. And after those long, prodding, rambling promos from Triple H, Batista summed up everything so perfectly in 4 words. It's really good to see him back and getting what he wants from WWE and to end his in-ring career this way. He's got such star power, and it's been so bizarre at the way that WWE has been treating him. He's wanted to come back if his interviews are to be believed. They say no. They're treating him just like the beaten red-headed stepchild of professional wrestling. So good to see him come back here.
You've got Batista, I've got Triple H. Going to be a great match no matter what, or at least you'd hope so.
Look, I love to see Triple H's entrance. He always goes all out. Hopefully they just don't overdo it. I want a 10-minute smash mouth kind of match. I want Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg from 2 years ago in this.
All right, so you want a match where it's pretty much a fighting game on easy mode and both people are spamming fireballs at each other.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it needed to be.
And trash talking.
Absolutely. All right, great. Next up is Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre.
This is going to be an interesting one because there's no way I can see Roman Reigns getting pinned after everything he's gone through and the setbacks. Drew McIntyre's momentum is going to be hindered a bit, but at the end of the day, Roman Reigns has to win this.
I agree completely. And this is going to be the first WrestleMania in 4 years that Reigns hasn't been in the main event, which is a crazy stat.
Yeah, I know.
4 years, jeez.
It's also probably going to possibly be the first WrestleMania in 4 years that he's going to get cheered.
I think it is, yeah. You can't boo Roman.
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. Roman's got to win here, but McIntyre, he's not going to be hurt too much by this loss. He's looked amazing. He has all the potential in the world and has been living up to that potential. It's not his time. He's going to be fine going forward after this.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those matches where he loses, but then all of a sudden he gets a main event push. So, I think he's going to definitely be pinned by Roman Reigns, and SummerSlam, I reckon he'll be main eventing by SummerSlam.
Oh, McIntyre will get his win back definitely down the line. But for now, Reigns over McIntyre at WrestleMania for that feel-good moment.
Next, Bobby Lashley versus Finn Balor for the Intercontinental Championship. Or, sorry, should I say the Demon?
And the Demon has a record as good as Goldberg with wins and losses. Look, I don't know which way it was going to go, Lashley or Finn Balor, but now that it's the Demon...
You didn't know which way you were going to go. Oh, before the Demon. Okay, makes sense.
But now, I mean, definitely, like, you kind of wonder what... Like, you know, definitely wasn't going to bring out the Demon for Goldberg. Sorry, I said Goldberg when I was meaning Brock Lesnar. But yeah, look, he doesn't lose as the Demon, and it's definitely going to be a better match than he had with Bray Wyatt. So I'm definitely going Finn Balor as the Demon to beat Lashley and make Lio Rush look stupid again.
Lio Rush doesn't need a lot of help to make Lio Rush look stupid. I completely agree with you. I mean, including the point about Lesnar, I mean,
He chose not to become the Demon against Lesnar for a Universal title match, but here at WrestleMania, he's going to do it against Bobby Lashley for an Intercontinental title match.
I think we need to explain to Finn Balor just how important each bout is.
I guess maybe the paint's just super expensive, and he was off for a while, like for a year with an injury. So
Royal Rumble was January. Maybe the supply was still a bit quiet after Christmas.
Fair enough.
On holidays.
Balor needs to win here to keep up the mystique. I think everyone knows that it's going to be Demon Finn going to get his title back, and Lashley will go off to do something mediocre as he always does. Next, Shane McMahon versus The Miz in a Falls Count Anywhere match. God, why is The Miz facing this match?
Look, I did like the idea of Shane McMahon going heel, especially after the Survivor Series effort from the SmackDown brand. Look, Miz is actually working as a face for...
You think so?
Time. Yeah, well, you know what? He's charismatic. People like that. People are kind of forgetting the baby throwing incident against Daniel Bryan. This is one where I've actually predicted a crazy swerve. I am saying Shane's going to win this, and Maurice turns on him, and Shane is the father of Miz's unborn second child because they need a ratings grab before going to Fox.
What?
Yes.
That is...
Yeah,
I thought you were going to say when you said swerve some sort of double turn, but no, it's going to be a baby daddy storyline that is only worthy of Fox.
Look, as Fastlane was happening, the last pay-per-view, they made reference to Maurice wanting to be there, but she's just announced her second baby, and I just get the feeling, I'm not saying they're going to hire Vince Russo, but I can just see something... The fact that there's going to be so many general viewers coming in for WrestleMania, I dare say a bit of lowest common denominator to try and get some fans in.
Bro, that's not your baby, bro. Oh my God.
You weren't expecting that, were you?
I was not. No, I'm a bit blown away. I'm going to be disappointed if it's anything than not that, actually, now. I don't know. I mean, I like the storyline going forward. I mean, a lot of people... shit on WWE for just not doing long-term booking that makes sense. But this has been going on since Crown Jewel, this storyline.
Yep.
And they've done a really good job logistically. But I mean, part of me just really wanted evil Miz and Miz Dad mascot just running havoc on anything. I mean, he's such a character there. I don't know. Miz, I don't think that Miz is working as a face right now. I think he has respect from the fans right now. He's been around long enough. He's been such a solid hand, and the passion that he has for the business. I think that there's a difference between having respect and having face heat. Mm-hmm. But
I'm gonna say Miz purely just because Shane really hasn't had the best WrestleMania record either, particularly the last few WrestleManias that have happened.
Yeah, look, I would probably have stopped watching WWE if he did beat Undertaker in a cell match and AJ Styles 2 years ago. When you were watching SmackDown a couple of days later and you're seeing AJ Styles with the big black eye because Shane can't work safe, Well, look, New York has a lot of tall buildings and a lot of things for Shane to jump off. So that's the other thing.
And I'm going to stop watching WWE if the outcome is anything but baby daddy drama. All right, so we've got Shane and Miz there. You're going Shane, I'm going Miz, but that's okay. We'll see what happens. All right, next we've got Randy Orton versus AJ Styles. This one's a tough one. I don't think either guy really needs the rub now.
They definitely don't, but...
No. So it could go either way. I'm going to say Orton, just because the storyline is pretty much indie guys versus WWE guys. And with the landscape that wrestling is right now, if Jericho is to be believed and that Vince has banned him from WWE from signing with AEW, if there really is that disdain or just worry about the competition out there, it's going to be an opportunity on the grandest stage of them all for Vince to really just rub it in,
Those vanilla midgets' faces, as it were.
Words of Hulk Hogan there. Look, it was sort of flirted with, was a start of, not last year, but the year before, so 2017, when John Cena was basically saying to AJ Styles, look at what I've done in WWE. I don't care what we've done elsewhere. It hasn't been WWE. So they've actually gone to the next level with it. And, shaking hands in bingo halls, how good is that?
There have been some really choice exchanges in this one. And it's so good to see Orton care again.
He is the best performer when he cares, especially on the mic. Look, I think Randy Orton's going to win this WrestleMania match without any help from projection on the ring. Sorry to bring that up, but it's hard. It's hard not to forget. But look, I think Randy's going to win it. I think AJ's going to win the return match, and the storyline's going to be AJ not quite knowing how to adapt to WWE level, but then he does in the return match.
So they have a trilogy of their own, but ultimately it's AJ who wins that one.
I mean, if they book this right, this can go for the next 3 months.
It really could. And both of those guys, they're both performing at an amazing level, but they really are both in their twilights. AJ's, I think he's going 41 this year.
Yep.
Orton's 39, so they don't really have a lot of time in the ring actively left if, you look at it logically. So I think they're putting a lot of passion into this feud. I wouldn't be surprised seeing it go to a trilogy too. That makes a lot of sense. But we're both in the camp that you're thinking that Orton's going to win this one as well. So both of us have got Orton for this. All right, great. On the same page again. All right, that brings us to our final 3 matches, our final 3 championship matches. Let's start with Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. The heartwarming story of WrestleMania season.
WrestleMania is all about moments. Kofi is going to be a great moment when he wins at WrestleMania. I think this match will probably be put a bit earlier in the card, just to make it feel a bit more important, and especially 6 hours. Hold on. Between pre-show and everything else, it could get close to 6 hours.
Absolutely.
So I think they're definitely going to nestle it in the card when everything starts to drop off a little bit, but I think Kofi, and he deserves it.
He does, he really does. It's been a phenomenal heel run from Bryan.
Yeah, he's been an amazing ladder to make Kofi seem like a much bigger deal than what he was 6 months ago.
Absolutely, and it really is the perfect foil for him too. You've got the New Day, who are just pretty much the poster boys for consumption with their amount of merchandise, with throwing out processed food to the kids and the people there. And you've got Daniel Bryan, who's just shoving it in people's faces about how he's better than we are because of his beliefs. I wouldn't have believed it a year ago if you were to tell me that Daniel Bryan would be universally booed by audiences around the world. And it just goes to show how good of a performer he is to come back from a retirement, from legit retirement.
One of the best feel-good moments that we've had in the last 5 years.
Yeah. But I do agree with you. I really do think it's Kofi's time. They need to pull the trigger on this. And even if he loses the next pay-per-view, even if he loses the next SmackDown, there have been so many talks about how, this is going to set up a New Day turn, or it's going to be some weird kind of evolution moment where, Big E gives the thumbs down and Kofi gets dropped. But
do that in the weeks that follow. At least then Kofi gets his WrestleMania moment. He's in the record books as a champion, which he deserves so much.
Exactly. Look, he's worked really hard. He doesn't really do anything wrong. He doesn't injure people. He doesn't get arrested. He doesn't fight police officers. He turns up on time.
He's universally loved, too, in the locker room.
Yeah, he does. Other than maybe Randy Orton, but Randy Orton, I think he's called everyone stupid and punted their face. So
he's calmed down a bit, too, I think, in recent years, which is good.
But yeah, look, I think Kofi, I mean, thinking about the New Day, if someone's going to have a singles career, I was always thinking Big E would get the push first.
Me too.
Even when Kofi was in that Money in the Bank SmackDown match the year before last, was it, or last year? I wasn't expecting him to be the one from New Day. So I think it's great, and I think it just shows like how good a story can be when WWE lets it happen organically. Because I mean, don't forget, he is in the position of Mustafa Ali.
Yes, that is very true. You can remove him from the title picture later on. He doesn't have to be a long-term champion, but it has to be him. Yep, so there we go. Kofi Kingston, one of hopefully many heartwarming WrestleMania moments for this WrestleMania. I mean, with 16 matches, you'd think that there's got to be at least one or two feel-good moments. Is this one going to be a feel-good moment? Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins for the WWE Universal Championship.
You know, you think you know it, and then you just change your mind the next day. Look, I was always thinking that Seth Rollins was going to win it, take the belt off Brock, liberate the belt from Brock Lesnar, and just be the next top guy. But I'm not so sure because, you know, they're not paying Brock Lesnar much when he doesn't do anything. He's still a big deal. I know that WWE is going to change the landscape a little bit to appeal to a more sports-orientated SmackDown market. We've heard the rumours about Daniel Cormier coming in. I don't really think there's anyone for Brock Lesnar to fight in the UFC at the moment other than Cormier. I believe that Brock is, as much as I hate it, I think he's going to hold on. I think he's going to retain.
You know, I would have said a couple of months ago, or when the Rumble happened, that Rollins was a lock. But now Reigns is back. And as awful as that sounds, I don't think that in Vince's eyes, Rollins is the guy anymore. I mean, I think Rollins actually was just a placeholder. I mean, that sounds horrible, but at the same time, I think that Reigns was walking into WrestleMania as champion if he didn't get sick.
Thank goodness he's back. It's amazing that he's beaten leukemia. I just think that this is really probably his return has, you know, thrown plans into disarray.
Yeah.
I think if anyone is going to take the belt off of Lesnar, they're probably going to try to recreate that Reigns moment again, especially this time because he's getting the reactions that Vince wants.
Yeah, and it's actually a much better story this time. And shame for Rollins because he looks so good and he's been such a good worker.
You can't have two WrestleManias with a Lesnar retention, even though it's not the last match. But I think because this isn't the main event, and as soon as they announced that, it really did just kind of seal the deal for me that it's going to be Lesnar.
Yep. Because look, a lot of effort and planning goes into those closing WrestleMania moments, and which leads us to the next point.
Absolutely. We have, for the first time ever, a women's WrestleMania main event. Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair versus Becky Lynch in a winner-takes-all match for both the Raw and SmackDown women's championships. I mean, this did not have to be a winner-take-all match. It really did not.
It didn't. I think it's more just like, what else can we take from Asuka?
Oh, my goodness. No one was ready for Asuka, especially Asuka. No one was ready for what they would do to Asuka, should I say. I mean, look, it's been historically established, I think, that unified champs
across multiple shows do not work out.
I think maybe the max has been a year, if anything. I mean, you've got two split rosters. It just doesn't make sense. And I think that it's a bad idea to unify the belts. I think it was unnecessary. And this was already announced as the main event before that had to happen. So
it didn't need to happen. And Charlotte Flair, just regardless of what's happening, she's always going to look strong.
Of course.
She promos well. She works hard. She doesn't need extra momentum. She doesn't need the gold.
No. I mean, that being said, it is very exciting. It's well-deserved for the women to finally get their moment, especially these three women, because just such all phenomenal workers. That being said, it's got to be Becky.
Yep, I definitely agree with you there. Like, I mean, the momentum that Becky has had since SummerSlam And you know what? They were trying to say, hey, Becky's the heel. Like, don't boo Becky. But you know what? Everyone wants to see Becky win. Everyone wants to see Becky get Charlotte to tap out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way it's going to go down.
You can't have 2 WrestleManias in a row that end with a letdown.
No.
And the crowd will reject anything but Becky for this one. I really do think. I think that they've come a long way around from swaying me. Originally, as I think everyone did, I mean, it's not a controversial opinion where I say that adding Charlotte into this seemed like a silly idea at the time, but she really has come around and she's just made it. And that go home segment from Raw, for those of you who are regular listeners, you'll remember I did my countdown for the top 5 go home Raws prior to WrestleMania. I mean, I did that, I released it, and then 3 days later that segment happened, and I almost like I had to reevaluate because that was just money. It was so good. And
just capped off by a boot to the face by Charlotte on Ronda. It was everything you wanted in a go-home segment. It captured the energy of the days of old, and it really just solidified the fact that this was going to be the WrestleMania main event and deserving of that spot.
And I really want to see them go to 11 with this. We know that Ronda has talked about quitting WWE and focusing on a family. We've heard Charlotte Flair talking about only wanting to do this for another couple more years. They're going hard and they're definitely going home, and I mean, I can't wait to see the montage and the picture package you see before that triple threat main event.
There's actually a lot of parallels running between this storyline and the WrestleMania 30 Daniel Bryan storyline. You had someone who, in Vince's eyes maybe, wasn't deserving of being the champion. And they had already won the belts a couple of times. Bryan had won the World Heavyweight belt. Becky's won the SmackDown belt a couple of times. But it didn't feel like the real thing, the legit thing, at least up until that stage. Their characters only really caught fire until afterwards. And you had that coronation for Bryan at WrestleMania 30, and WrestleMania 30 is regarded as one of the best of all time, specifically for that reason. I feel that it's going to be Becky's time raising those 2 belts at the end of the show, confetti and streamers going down.
Yep, definitely agree. She's been part of the main roster for a few years now, and definitely part of an exciting group of 4 horsewomen. And you know what? I'm actually surprised. I was always a fan of Becky Lynch, but I didn't think she had it in her. But when she had that, she found that edge, stopped wearing all that steampunk clothes, and you actually do feel like it's a genuine performer there. She was the female Conor McGregor, and fans are accepting of it, and there's going to be a lot more T-shirts to say the man than Rowdy, and there's going to be a lot more than whatever Charlotte's selling at the merch stand. So definitely going to be her WrestleMania.
Becky Lynch closing off, both belts raised over her head.
What match are you looking forward to the most, Chris?
Oh, what match? You know what? Before you brought in that whole Maury Povich angle, now I kind of want to say Shane versus The Miz. I'm really looking forward to the main event. I am. I think it's the first WrestleMania in a long time that the main event is the one that has had the most intrigue for me right now.
Yep, and generally I've always cared about matches on the card that aren't the main event, and it feels like they've actually got it right this year.
They really have. I mean, Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan is going to be fantastic, and that'll be a great moment too if they do the right thing. But, I mean, just to see the culmination of the women's revolution ending with the rightly appointed and deserved figurehead of that is going to be fantastic. What about you?
Yep, definitely the women's main event. I do want to know with the SmackDown title, if Kofi does win it, does he get the hemp belt or does he get the real one back?
Oh, there's a joke about Kofi and hemp there that I'm not gonna touch. I mean, he might have both. He might enjoy one in one way, and he might request one to be worn. But
or maybe a weekday and a weekend out.
16 matches. I think we were pretty consistent in our agreements with a lot of them. A couple of ones we disagreed with, but looks like we're both on the same page. The one thing I still have to pose to you:
who is going to interrupt Elias at WrestleMania?
Oh, Elias's concert. I dare say that Jeff Jarrett might actually get a bit of revenge on him.
Double J.
I mean, you had that fantastic just string of appearances from, I think, 27 to 32 string of appearances from The Rock. So I'll be disappointed if it's anyone but The Rock. But that's what I say about 99% of wrestling today. I'll be disappointed if the next person out the curtain isn't anyone but The Rock. I just refuse to let go. And I mean, touching on something else, you've got 16 matches. People are complaining about that. You know, you've got this Elias segment. There's going to be a lot of backstage shenanigans. There's been so many complaints about the length of this show. But that's just par for the course. It's WrestleMania weekend. It's chock full of various other shows too. You've got NXT TakeOver. You've got the Supercard of Honor. You've got pretty much any indie promotion running a show. It is what it is, but we're not complaining. We're going to get sucked in, as we always do. We're going to stay up. It's Christmas for wrestling fans.
Yeah, and it gives something different to all different fans. They just try and do as much as they can for the hardcore fans and the, generic fans. And
we're going to stay up, both you and I, until 1 a.m. or God knows whenever the card ends our time. We're going to wake up. We're going to go to work. We're going to see each other the next day. We'll be blurry-eyed, but you know what? We'll be smiling because we'll have just seen a kick-ass show. And that's the sacrifice we have to make as wrestling fans. All right, that has been the show. Those were our WrestleMania predictions. Dan, thank you so much for doing this with me.
Thanks for inviting me.
Like I did say, Ben and Jack will have their predictions up shortly. In the meantime, be sure to follow us on Twitter at 5MOD_podcast. I personally am at CSmall201, and let us know what you thought. Do you agree with our predictions? Do you disagree? Do you think that we don't know what we're talking about? Well, you've got some nerve. Also, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you do get your podcasts. Be sure to check out those sweet, sweet teas at smartmark.co.uk. Thank you once again, guys, for listening. This has been Chris Small and Darren Saracino for the 5 Moves of Doom podcast. Take care and enjoy WrestleMania weekend.